Hi everybody, welcome back to Autodidactic. It's been a while since I had a sit-down video. Today is the 4th of July weekend, and somehow it has made me start thinking about my immigration journey. To be 10 years this September since I moved into the US. I'm not going to be talking about the whole immigration process. If you want to ask me a few questions about my immigration process, you're welcome to do so on the comment section. But I'm just thinking about the interesting things I went through those first days that I moved here. We moved in and it was like 2 weeks before school started. The immigration journey had taken a little too long, and I had been thinking my daughter was going to miss the beginning of the school year. I was happy that she was going to start with the rest and she'll not have to catch up. So we went to the school to enroll her, and we met the guidance counselor. And by the way, just so you know, my husband is American. He was born here, so he was just coming home. But when we got into this office, the guidance counselor, of course, knew who to talk to, just because she assumed we were from Africa and we didn't speak English. So her full attention was onto my husband, asking him about, my daughter and all the questions that she needed to answer. And in my mind, I was like, here we go again. Because it was not my first rodeo with people who assume that since you're from Kenya, Africa, you don't speak English. She asked him whether our daughter needed English tutoring, and I could just see his temper rising. And he said, no, she does not need any tutoring. She speaks English. She's spoken English since she was in kindergarten. And the guidance counselor said, oh, okay, I didn't know that. He turns to her and asks her a few questions. What's your favorite subject? What's your favorite sport? But I knew that she was trying to figure out how much, or the accent, or whether she would understand how my daughter was speaking, the accent. But I guess she was surprised because she really spoke, I would say, eloquently. We accomplished that. But my husband could not stop talking about it. And I said to him, you remember when I told you a guy had asked me how I knew a Whitney Houston song because I was so newly immigrated to the US? I said, this is what I was telling you about. It's the assumption that we don't speak English because we're from Africa. And I'm very careful when I meet people, because we stereotype and we assume that because someone is from this country, or because they're this tribe, or because they look a certain way, they do not do XYZ things, or they don't know XYZ. So I'm guilty of that, I guess. My husband was supposed to leave to go back to his workstation. He worked in India. He had not wound up at his work post. So he left us 2 weeks after we had come. And we had a lady who would take us around to the store because I didn't have a driver's license yet. And she was of such help. But one day we went to the supermarket and she took us through aisle to aisle to aisle, explaining to us what kind of food this was. And she actually took us to the sanitary towel aisle and said, these are called sanitary towels. And I was like, I'm going to be polite. I'm not going to be rude or anything, because she was of so much help to us. Before, like I said, I got my license. But we got to the aisle where they sold cookies. And she told my daughter, oh, these are called Oreos. I think you'll like them. And my daughter looked at her and she said, I actually left a lot of Oreos in the pantry back in Kenya. It was one of my favorite cookies to have for snack in school. And she got taken aback. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had Oreos in Kenya. She said, yeah, we do. This lady called me one morning a few days after, because that's when Kenya got bombed. The Westgate Mall was a big story. And it was on CNN, and she called me. And she said, you know, I am so sorry that I assumed you guys didn't have like supermarkets like we do here. Because she had seen this mall. It was a big, fancy mall. And of course, the people too there, we have every person there. We have white people, we have Indians, we have Arabs, Kenya is like a melting pot. So we have a lot of different cultures there. But I say that was a nice way for her to learn, because I don't think when we pay enough attention to the people around us, to the world around us. Because if she had paid attention to the world around her before she met me, she maybe would have known about a lot of things in Kenya. Because people generally assume it's one big village. Actually, that's a question my husband got asked, like if when he married me, we lived in the village. He finally understood why sometimes people become rude, because some questions are really very trivial. You know, like my daughter got asked a question by one of her classmates, like whether they have floors in their houses in Africa, and my daughter was like, of course we do have floors. Basically what the kid thought, that because she lived in Africa, she lived in a hut and they had to wake up and sweep the dirt every morning. Anyway, that's part of the stereotyping, so to speak, that when you come in here, you get used to. And sometimes it is hard to even try to tell somebody about the fact that you're wrong, but because you're like, we have internet. If you're not sure about something, before you ask me such a ridiculous question, can you just Google it? You know, Google is your friend. The other thing I didn't think about was the driving. I got into the car when finally I got my license, and I was on the wrong side of the road. It was the right side in my head, because that's all I knew how to drive when I was in Kenya. And I saw people flashing lights at me, and I'm thinking, why is everybody on the wrong side of the road? And then I clicked, oh my goodness, we keep right here. I learned to keep left. And actually I had gone for a few classes, but it took a while for my brain to just adjust to the fact that I have to be on the other side of the road. So now when I go visiting in Kenya, I don't even want to get into a car to drive, because again, it's a mind shift. I have to now think I'm here. It is too much for me. I don't even bother. I would rather take an Uber or ask somebody to drive me, because I don't want to get into accidents. So what else can I think about that was so ridiculous? Coming from a country where the temperature doesn't go below, I think, 54, you get so depressed when winter comes. I know I used to get depressed because I didn't want to come out of the house. I'll be feeling so cold, I didn't want to touch anything. I just wanted to sit and vegetate. After I actually got a job after a whole year, because the first year I just was trying to deal with being a parent in the US. My daughter is an athlete, so I was more focused on picking and dropping, because she had hours that sometimes the school bus didn't run home with her, so I have to be there to pick her. And it's just actually more or less the fact that I was depressed. I was like, did I make the right decision in moving here? Finally, when I was thinking, if I don't get a job, I'm going to go crazy. I'm a trained early childhood teacher, so I decided I'm going to look for a job. And when I told my husband, his answer to me was like, I don't think you're going to get a job as a teacher. I think you can only get a job as a daycare assistant. Nothing wrong with daycare assistant, but I wanted to be a teacher. And I asked him, why do you think that? He said, it's because of your qualifications. I don't think you can get a job here in the US. Maybe you need to go back to school. I said, excuse me, but I was teaching where I was in Kenya. He said, I know you're a good teacher. I know you're a qualified teacher, but that's just what it is here. And I was on a mission to prove him wrong. I said, of all the people who should have my back and should actually have faith in my getting a job as a teacher would be him, because he's my husband. He said, good luck. I'm 100% behind you, so go ahead and look for a job. For the next few months, I was filling applications. After some time, I got an interview in a school that was 20 miles from me. And I went there and I got a job. And I went on to work 7 years in this school. It's been 2 years since I stopped working there. And I just stopped working there because I finally got tired of being on the highway, and some truck hit my car and I was like, that's it. I'm not going to be driving 20 miles to school, no matter how much I love my job. I really, really love my job. I love the kids, I love my bosses, love my colleagues. They were the best. The parents were great. I had the best time in that school. I decided it's finally the time to get a job near my home where I can just drive like 10 minutes tops. And that's where I am now. The reason I think I made this video is we do not think about the hardships that immigrants go through when they move into this country or in any country, because a lot of things are new. People don't necessarily respect you or like you or want you in their town, and that's the problem with human beings. We fail to think that we all want a good life. We all are striving to have a better life for ourselves, and sometimes you move just because you want to be back home with your loved one, because like in my situation, my husband is home. I might be miles away from home, but we are home here also. He also had come and lived so many miles away from his home, and he had to relearn some things too when he got there. Granted, he refused to have to ever get into the car to drive. He said, no, I'm not going to be doing this. So I'm actually more courageous than him in that regard. So it's been a journey. It'll be 10 years this coming September. When I'm here in the US, you open your mouth to speak and somebody will ask you, where are you from? You have an accent. I've noticed that when I go to Kenya now, speak English, people will look at me and ask, your English sounds strange, it has an accent. So I think I always say I'm an in-betweener nowadays, because I don't think I fit wherever I go. So I'm home here and I'm home there. When I go there, I'm saying I'm going home. When I come here, I'm saying I'm going home. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be celebrating 4th of July. And finally, I feel I'm part of this culture. I'm part of this country that welcomed me with open arms.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm hoping that you're going to have the best 4th of July ever. And please remember to enjoy responsibly. Please don't forget to subscribe. Until the next time, bye.